The title rector means ruler, but I obviously I never rule anything. It's herding cats in the Episcopal Church. I always laugh at that when I look at my office door. Well, we left off in the middle of chapter 17 here, and where we're kind of from 17 on, we're kind of in the last section of Revelation. It really is about the tale of two cities, the tale of Rome and the tale of the New Jerusalem. And Rome is going to be coded as Babylon. So we'll see a lot of things about Babylon, but it's Rome that we are talking about. If you remember, Babylon is the country that took the Jewish people into exile, and Babylon destroyed the Jewish temple. Well, by this point, if it is Domitian, Rome has destroyed the Jewish temple. Rome is doing nasty things to the Christian people as well, and so Babylon is not a bad image for that. So we have some parallel scenes. In chapter 21, the angel takes John to see the New Jerusalem, and in chapter 17 last week, we had the angel taking John to see the judgment of the great whore. And one of the titles on the coins of Rome is Mother, the Great Mother, Magna Mater. And so this is a slam at Rome. Well, she's not the Great Mother; she's the Great Prostitute. She can't claim to be mother of anything except nastiness. All right, so verse 3 is where we left off. So the angel, John says, the angel carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names. Well, we've seen the beast before. The beast is the Roman Empire. So the city of Rome is sitting on the Roman Empire, on the back of the Roman Empire, and it's red, just like the dragon. The Rome is showing its true colors here. It is satanic. It is demonic. So sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, probably claiming divinity, which is what makes it blasphemous. The beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. We saw this beast before. And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, just like the emperors were in Rome, and was adorned with gold and jewels and pearls. Ironically, we'll see gold and jewels and pearls a little bit later on with the New Jerusalem. So the woman has kind of this stuff on her clothing. Later, we'll see an entire city with ginormous pearls. Gates are made out of pearl, big, giant, huge pearl turned into a gate. I mean, it's not gates with some little pearls, fake pearls, hot glued on, but it's the gate is a big, giant pearl. So we're getting some contrast here. The woman's decoration is tawdry compared with what's going to be in the New Jerusalem. So gold, jewels, pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her fornication. So while she does look impressive, she is worshiping blasphemous things. And that pure fornication is often code for, in the Old Testament and certainly here with the Old Testament prophets in here, not being faithful to God, not being faithful to the worship of the one God. If you worship any other God, that is fornication, that's adultery, a very common Old Testament image. And on her forehead was written a name, a mystery, a symbol, Babylon the Great, mother of whores and of earth's abominations. So not only is she prostituting herself, and not only is she the prostitute, but she is causing others to fall into worshiping abominable gods, worshiping idols, worshiping deities other than the living God. Mother of whores and of the earth's abominations. And I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of saints and the blood of witnesses to Jesus. So not only is she got a cup full of abominations, but she's also killing Christians, drunk on their blood. All right, so not a positive view of the city of Rome here by any stretch of the imagination. So far, so good. Okay. Well, middle of verse 6. So when I saw her, I was greatly amazed. But the angel said to me, why are you so amazed? I will tell you a mystery of the woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was not and is about to ascend from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. So this is stuff we've seen before. The abyss, and God was and is to come. This imitation was not and is not. So it's an incomplete, fake, sham deity here, the beast of the Roman Empire. And the inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will be amazed when they see the beast, because it was and is to come. We haven't done much with that book of life. That's going to come into play later at the last judgment. The books will be open, and this book of life will determine what people's ultimate fate will be. But the people who are not God's chosen, God's elect, if you're a Calvinist, the predestination, but they certainly can use this as a proof text. The people that are not God's people will be impressed and amazed, and they'll see this beast that was and is not and is to come. And remember, too, we talked about several chapters ago, Nero, that legend of Nero, not really dying, kind of like King Arthur or Elvis. He's still running around secretly, and he'll arise yet again. So probably another play on that piece as well. Okay, just in case we are in doubt about who this woman is, riding the beast of the Roman Empire with the color of Satan, decked out in jewels. This calls for a mind that has wisdom. John's going to decode verse 9 here. The 7 heads are 7 mountains or 7 hills on which the woman is seated. What city has 7 hills? Well, Rome famously has 7. This is just in case you're not getting it. We're going to make it crystal clear here. 7. She's seated on these 7 mountains. Also, the 7 heads represent 7 kings, of whom 5 have fallen, 1 is living, and the other has not yet come. And we saw this a couple chapters ago as well, this discussion of the Caesars. And how you number them can be confusing. You can number these different ways to make it fit whatever scheme you want. Because there was one year when there were three warlord generals that kind of in quick succession took the Roman throne, didn't really hold on to it. So do we count them? Well, if you want to have the number come out to X, let's count them. If you want the number to come out to Y, don't count them. And you can make it Nero, you can make it Domitian by playing those kinds of games. But the beast, the 7 kings, of whom 5 have fallen, 1 is living, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain only a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. So is that talking about Domitian? Perhaps that Domitian is in line with these other kings. That's probably the message here. Domitian is next, but his fate is going to be destruction as well. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. So there are other royal people here. And are these Roman rulers, or are these rulers of client states? Probably the latter, but you can find people arguing both directions on that. I would certainly lean towards the latter here. We're going to talk about the kings of the earth just in the next chapter in 18. And these are united in yielding their power and their authority to the beast. They're giving their client authority as client kings to the beast, and they'll make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. So things are going to look bad for a little while. Rome is still on the hills. Kings are still riding the beast. They're still on the throne. There are other kings supporting them, so things don't look good. But be encouraged. This is just, again, a little while, and they're going to oppose the Lamb. They're going to oppose the church. They're going to oppose the Christians. They're going to get drunk on the blood of the saints and the blood of the witnesses to Jesus, as we saw earlier in the chapter. And yet the Lamb is going to ultimately conquer, because he is the true Lord of Lords, not Caesar. He is the true King of Kings, not Caesar and all these other client kings. And those with him are chosen and faithful. So be encouraged. Lamb beats beast. Lamb beats any kind of idolatrous Caesar pretender. So far, so good. Thoughts, comments? Okay. And then he said to me, verse 15, the waters that you saw where the whore is seated are the peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And don't forget, Rome is a Mediterranean country. It sits on a long, huge boot-shaped peninsula. Italy is not very fertile. It has some farm areas, but not enough to sustain Rome and the other big cities. And so they have to import stuff. Rome sends its military around the Mediterranean basin. Rome does great trade around the Mediterranean. One of the biggest things, I mentioned this several times, is grain. Egypt provides much more grain than any other place in the empire to Rome. And in fact, most merchants would not sail in the wintertime, but the Romans needed grain so badly they would force, at a great price, they'll pay a premium to get grain shipped in the wintertime, but they would have merchants do it. If the merchants had slaves, who cares if we lose a few ships with a few slaves? I'm not gonna ride the ship as the great merchant. I'm not stupid, but I'll send my flunkies out, my property out, my slaves out to do it. If we lose a few ships, cost of doing business. So that all comes to play. So the waters on which the whore is seated are the multitudes, peoples, languages, nations, and languages. And the 10 whores that you saw, they and the beast will hate the whore, and they will make her desolate and naked, and they will devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. Rome is going to fall apart. You've got these other kings out there. They're under Rome's thumb, but eventually they are not going to be subservient. And so Rome's destruction will come from within. The Roman Empire will fall apart from internal divisions. And certainly, later there will be tribes on the fringes of the empire that will come marching into Rome. So that certainly is a dynamic that happens later in history. We talked when we talked about the history of Christianity that Rome goes from a city of 1 million to a city of about 25,000 in a few centuries. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. I mean, well, what's 1 million? A San Antonio million, give or take. So to go from San Antonio to Plainview size, and to have the Plainview amount of people rattling around in a city the size of San Antonio, I mean, that'd be it's just hard to fathom. And of course, they had no front lawns, and they were packed a lot closer, a lot fewer square miles for a city. But that still is just staggering to think about what's going to happen. All right, so these kings will devour her flesh, burn her up with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by agreeing to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God will be fulfilled. So God is still in charge. The kings, these client kings giving their loyalty to Rome, God's allowing that to happen. God is not fooled. God is not mocked. God is not powerless in any of this. God, anything that happens is not necessarily something God causes, but God allows to happen. They carry out his purpose. Just like Persia will carry out God's purpose by defeating Babylon until she gets uppity, and God will take her down as well. Same way with these client kings. And just in case you didn't know it, the woman you saw, if you didn't get, is the great city. Well, there's only one great city in the empire that rules over the kings of the earth. What what city rules over all these client kings around the Mediterranean? And she sits on 7 hills in case you can get that clue. Rome, 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 Rome. All right. Now, of course, are there other empires that rise up later? Certainly there are. Are there other applications that we could certainly make symbolically with this? You better believe it. But John was not sitting there waiting for the Soviet Union to come about in the year 1917 or whatever it was. John was talking about Rome. We can certainly apply it to later empires, and we have seen a multitude of them in the 20th century, 21st century, 19th centuries, 18th. Yeah, we can go all the way back, and certainly they are beast-like in some ways, and have been pulling some of the same behaviors and doing the same things, but very clear here, Rome is being addressed. Rome is persecuting the early church. Rome is going to be taken out. Okay, thoughts or comments here before we slide into 18?
Part of that's because a lot of those empires later would want to harken back to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Mussolini loved to, and you go to Rome and the manhole covers still have SPQR on them for the Senate and people of Rome. Well, the Senate in Rome hasn't been operating. Yeah, that's been gone for 1,500 years, but they still love the romance of it, just like we love the romance of the Republic of Texas. Republic of Texas, a failed state that could not exist on its own except for 9 years, but we had some independence, we had some past glory. Yeah, Trey.
Professor of Tech, Bentley, and he talked about the SPQR for Senate of Populous Guatemala. And he said there's a restaurant and it has SPQR on their menus. And he said modern Italians not from Rome would say it stands for Sono porci questi romani, are pigs these Romans.
So the rest of Italy makes fun of the Romans still using it. That's hilarious. I've never heard that. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. You want past glory? We'll just make fun of you. Okay, cool. But we do those things too. Yes. All right. Now 18 is kind of wild. So we're shaping up here. We've talked about they're going to make war against the Lamb. But we're kind of shaping up here for big destruction of Rome, big battle. And yet we don't get technicolor scenes of this happening. We get in 18 some secondhand reports. We get in 19 these battles, people gearing up for battle and the battle being over before it starts. If this was going to be an epic movie, you'd be very disappointed. A lot of the action here is going to happen off screen, off camera, in a way. So we're not going to get, we'll hear reports of destruction, but we won't get uber detailed description of these kinds of destructions, if that makes sense. And ditto for the couple of battles that we're going to have. They're going to be lining up for battle, and then it's over before it starts because the cross has happened. Jesus has already won the victory, and they may gear up thinking they're going to fight him, but they're already defeated before they even get there. So if you're making a movie, can you imagine watching Lord of the Rings? They're gearing up for these giant battles, and then the battle just ends immediately. Well, the movie be 20 minutes long instead of 3 hours long, each of the 3 episodes. So then the extended cut would be 5 minutes longer. But anyway, we don't get the same kind of gritty detail. We get basically some lamentations, some funeral dirges sung by people that were clients of Rome. But before we get into that, let's do just a little bit of Old Testament stuff real quick. Why don't we start with Isaiah 47 real quick? Just want to look at a couple things. So John's not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. These visions are certainly congruent with the Old Testament and have some Old Testament type riffs here. Isaiah 47. And Chaldea and Babylon are the same thing here. So chapter 47 is about how Babylon's going to be humiliated. This is probably the second prophet Isaiah on the Isaiah scroll at the time of the people being freed from Babylon's yoke and being brought home. Comfort my people, make the way straight to the desert, highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted. That's chapter 40. But we're in that section of Isaiah now. And we get this wonderful prophecy about Babylon going down. 47 starts, Babylon, you may as well sit in the dust. You think you're a virgin daughter, but you're not. Sit on the ground. You're not going to be on your throne anymore. You're not going to be tender and delicate. Remove your veil, strip off your robe, and cover your legs, which was what nice ladies would never do. Your nakedness shall be uncovered. Your shame shall be seen. I'm going to take vengeance on you, Babylon, and spare no one. Why? Down to verse 7. You said, I'll be mistress forever. I'll be in charge forever. So you didn't do the things you should have done. You showed no mercy on the aged. That's verse 6. You made your yoke on them exceedingly heavy. Now hear this, verse 8. You say, I'll not sit as a widow or know the loss of children, but verse 9, both of these things are going to come upon you. You're going to go down. You're going to go down. You felt secure in your wickedness, verse 10. But verse 11, evil shall come upon you. So we get this same kind of riff and lament over Babylon. Isaiah is predicting that Babylon is going to go down the same way we're getting this report of Babylon, Rome going down in Revelation. And we could actually that's probably enough. We could look at Jeremiah. We could look at Ezekiel. There's similar types of prophecies and things there, but they're actually going to be a little repetitive. So let's just stop there. We'll dive into them. But we get to this series of lamentations about Babylon here. And the first one is a proclamation from an angel. We actually get a couple of angels here. And then we get these other things happening. So it's almost like the chorus. The Greek theater had the chorus that would tell you what's going on, so you didn't have to stage things that were difficult. Henry V, you ever seen Henry V on stage? It's boring because they can't. And Henry, the narrator, comes out at the beginning and says, this is going to be boring. We can't show you everything we want to show you. Can we, in this cockpit, do the vasty fields of France? Well, of course not. So we're just going to do a few things. And then the movies make it, they show these elaborate battle scenes because we want to see the battle scenes. But, okay. So same kind of dynamic here. So verse 18, another angel coming out of heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with the angel's splendor. And he cried out in a mighty voice, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. It has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt of every foul and hateful bird, a haunt of every foul and hateful beast. It's going to go back to being wild country. And wild country is not romantic in the ancient world. Wild country is dangerous. It wasn't until the 1800s that European romanticism started thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice? We're in these big cities. Wouldn't it be nice to get out and have some nice garden, wild, fun areas? National parks would not have been established back then. That'd be a horrible. Why would you want to preserve that? That's dangerous and nasty stuff. So the city's going to turn into this wild, nasty place again. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. They've been worshiping the emperor of Rome. They've been worshiping the Caesar. They've been worshiping other gods. They have been sucked into this kind of unfaithfulness to the real God of the universe. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxury. And we'll see some more from the kings and from the merchants in just a little bit. So the client kings have cozied up to her, and they've gotten some temporary power because of that. And the merchants have made a killing. One of the things Rome did do, you build roads, you build shipping systems. And so if you're a merchant, this was a golden time. Europe would not be this easy to move around until late 17, early 1800s. Rome really was efficient in doing that. It's like Monty Python. What did the Romans ever do for us? Well, they did build the aqueducts, they did build the roads, they did build, okay. They did make commerce possible for a long while. And so the merchants are going to come into play here too, in just a little bit. All right. So then I heard another voice from heaven. So this is another proclamation saying, "Come out of her, my people," which was something that's a riff on Jeremiah, telling people to come out of Babylon, so that you do not take part in her sins, so you do not share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped high as heaven. Okay, that's some wonderful exaggeration, poetic exaggeration, but her sins have been piling up, and it's a big stinking pile now. And God has remembered her iniquities. It's not that God is not just, God has just been waiting. They're going to get what's coming to them. For whatever reason, God has waited. For whatever reason, God waited 400 years with the people in Egypt until he freed them from exile. God waited almost 50 years to free the exiles in Babylon. God's timing, God sometimes lets things pile up before judgment happens. So far, so good. So if you're a good Christian, don't get sucked into this emperor worship. Don't get sucked into something expedient. It may seem expedient to go and give that little pinch of incense to the emperor, but that's not faithful to God. So hang in there, just a little longer. Rome is going to be taken out. Rome is going to get her due. So just hang in there. God's justice, God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. All right. And then it continues on, the voice from this second angel, render to Babylon, Rome, as she has rendered, and repay her double for her deeds. Thieves had to pay double restitution. That was one of the, so Rome is a wonderful image here. Rome is a thief. One of the comforting images in Isaiah is that Jerusalem has paid double for her sins, and now God's going to bring her back. Isaiah 40, comfort you, my people. But Rome is going to pay double for her deeds. So mix a double draft for her in the cup that she mixed. The stuff that she's been drinking on, she's going to have to partake of herself. And then the charge here, she gloried in herself, not in God. She lived luxuriously with quite a bit of arrogance, and she lived on the back of a lot of slave labor. She lived on the back of oppressing client states. Poor Egypt. There were people starving in Egypt while I had to grow grain and ship it to Italy, and there are people starving because of Rome's arrogance. Rome had the army and the power to make sure that grain shipped. So she's lived luxuriously. They're even giving bread away in the streets to the poor people of Rome, but the poor people in the empire are suffering to keep Rome fed. So give her a like measure of torment and grief. Since in her heart she says, I rule as a queen, I am no widow, and I will never see grief. That's back to Isaiah. Therefore her plagues will come in a single day, pestilence and mourning and famine, and she'll be burned with fire, for mighty is the Lord who judges her. You could slip this into Isaiah, change just a couple words around, and it would fit beautifully. You could slip into Ezekiel or Jeremiah. This is very much an Old Testament type of proclamation here. So Rome has been deceiving herself. She thinks because of her wonderful status, I'm a queen. Well, she's going to be a widow, and she'll be grieving. She'll be without children, just as we saw in Isaiah. And fire. So we don't get the fire show. We don't get much of that. Okay, so scene one is these meteors start coming from heaven. No, we don't get all of that. We saw some destruction happening earlier in the book, partial destruction. But we don't get perhaps what would be satisfying to us as a scene with a lot of CGI and special effects and things.
The vengeance is God's and not the people to have necessarily.
Thank you. That's a good point. And vengeance, this is not for the Christians to rise up. And this is not Spartacus. So I'm going to preach on Spartacus in a couple of months. This is not a rebellion that needs to start from the Christians. Just grit your teeth and hang on. God is going to take care of things. Just be patient a little while longer. Rome is going to get what's coming to her. All right, then we get this song from these client kings. They are not happy. They are in grief. They see what's happening to Rome. And so verse 9, the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived in luxury with her will weep and wail over her when they see the smoke of her burning. They will stand far off in fear of her torment. So they're not going to go near the destruction of Rome. They'll stand back and wail and whine and cry in mourning. But they'll say, alas, alas, the great city Babylon, the mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. So the kings of the earth stay back from Rome. They watch for destruction. They lament that they're losing some of their power with her going down. Interestingly, this will be a tale of two cities. Later, there'll be a verse about kings bringing glory into a city. That'll be in the New Jerusalem. The kings of the earth will come and they will bring their glory and give it to God in the New Jerusalem. But right now, they're standing back out of this old city. They've abandoned her and say, well, you're on your own now. It's so sad for us you're going down. They don't care about her. They don't care about Rome, but we've lost our power. Alas, alas, isn't that a shame? You've been judged and we're out of that kind of power structure now. And then there's an extended riff from the merchants here. And that may be a little bit shocking to us. The kings, that all was narrated in just 2 verses. But all this merchant stuff is going to go on for a number of verses here. From 11 to 20. So this long lament from the merchants. One of the theories of this is, one, Rome was unjust in the way we mentioned the grain disparaging and the slaves and all that. Disparities, not disparaging, the grain disparities. Rome makes itself wealthy on the backs of her conquered, subjugated people. And the merchants are reaping a great harvest of this, so maybe that's a part of things. But some have also theorized that perhaps one of the ways that Christians were experiencing persecution was not as much in these early times by being killed outright, though some certainly were, but being excluded from the business world. You're not going to get government contracts. We're not going to do business with you, and we're going to encourage the people in your community not to do business with you, to shun you, and to keep you economically separate. Because we haven't done much in the way of the economy here, and this is a lot given that fact. And so this probably was something that was happening to these people, these early Christians, that there was some kind of economic price and penalty they were paying for being faithful to God. It wasn't just a few of us were getting killed. That was certainly happening, but they were probably forced into some poverty, not able to do business in the ways that they would normally be able to do. So that's perhaps a big piece of this. That's one of the newer scholarly analyses of these verses here. So so what are the merchants going to say? The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn for her. Verse 11, since no one buys their cargo anymore. The merchants have a lot to lose here. And what kind of stuff are they transporting? Wow, it's quite the list. Gold, silver, jewels, pearls. Again, those things that will be in the New Jerusalem. They're dealing with tawdry stuff here, but it'll be in its perfection later. Fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, purple cloth, silk and scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all articles of ivory, all articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, choice flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, slaves, and human lives and human bodies or souls. Is that a reference to the slaves, or is that something else going on? That's an interesting question. Are you trading in human bodies as a commodity? Slavery certainly is that. Or are you also imperiling people's souls? Certainly that's probably a piece of this as well. I would say it's a both and not an either or here.
Mine just says slaves, that is human souls.
Slaves, that is human souls. Yeah, it can be translated. It's one of those ambiguous things there. Notice also this list. At the end of the list, there's some staples. I mean, wine, flour, wheat, sheep. Horses are not something you eat, but they certainly are something to work with. What'd you find, Jimmy? Okay, it's okay.
I just didn't realize he's reading
In Spanish, he's just to be perspective, he's got Spanish and he's got Greek up above him there. So just to get the different translations. He's always had much more facility for languages than his dad has ever had. So we won't go anyway. I can do nouns and vocabulary words, but he can conjugate verbs, which I never could do. So anyway, so we've got some staples here, but there's sure a heck of a lot of stuff that's not staples. Do you need purple cloth? How necessary is purple cloth? How necessary is marble? Well, it's not. So Rome is making itself, these merchants are making themselves rich, not only providing what people need, but also all these expensive things, all these toys the people may not need, all these luxury items. Then the lament goes on, verse 14, the fruit for which your soul longed has gone from you. And all your dainties, all your luxuries, all your little special things, and your splendor are lost to you, never to be found again. Does anybody have a different translation for dainties? Dainties.
Glamorous.
Yours is what, Bill?
Glamorous.
Glamorous things. Okay.
I said splendor.
Splendor. Okay. All right.
It says luxurious.
Luxurious. Okay. So you're not only losing the important stuff, you're losing the little frou-frou things as well. And they're lost and they're never to be found again. That's a pretty final judgment there. And just as the kings stood afar off, we're not going in there now. All this stuff's coming down. We're going to stand back and lament from a distance, a safe distance. Just like the kings, the merchants of these wares who gained wealth from her will stand far off in fear of her torment, weeping and mourning aloud. Alas, alas, the great city clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, with jewels, with pearls, which is what the whore was wearing the chapter before. For in 1 hour, all this wealth has been laid waste. And the merchants are not the only ones making some bucks off this. All the shipmasters and seafarers and sailors and all whose trade is on the sea stood far off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, what city was like the great city? And they threw dust on their heads and they wept aloud and mourned, crying out, alas, alas, the great city, where all who had ships at sea grew rich by her wealth, at the expense of the galley slaves and things like that. For in 1 hour she's been laid waste. But unlike the lament of others, the seafarers, for whatever reason, and maybe it's because of these galley slaves, there's a little mixed thing here. So rejoice over her, O heaven, you saints and apostles and prophets, for God has given judgment for you against her. So that's a little bit different than the other two laments here. Then we get a mighty angel. A mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, with such violence, Babylon, the great city, will be thrown down and will be found no more. And the sound of harpists and minstrels and the flutists and trumpeters will be heard in you no more. Your culture, your worship life is going to be destroyed. And the artisan of any trade will be found in you no more. And the sound of the millstone will be heard in you no more. And the light of the lamp will shine in you no more. And the voice of bridegroom and bride will be heard in you no more. For your merchants were the magnets of the earth, and all nations were deceived by your sorcery. And in you was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all who have been slaughtered on the earth. Peter, Paul, all those others have been slaughtered. Yeah, let's not miss some of the things here. Harps are used in temple worship, interestingly, but they're not going to be in Rome anymore. No more worship is going to be going on in Rome. There will be worship going on in the New Jerusalem. In fact, the whole city is going to be a special temple, gigantic one. There won't be any artisans or any work going on. Well, in the New Jerusalem, you've got the tree of life cranking out food for everybody. You've got all the beauty of the city itself from God. Verse 23, the light of the lamp shines no more. Well, you don't even need a lamp in New Jerusalem. We're going to see this light that goes on 24/7. It's God's light. The lamp is the Lamb, enough to power and light the whole city. And the voice of bridegroom and bride will be heard no more. Well, we're going to have a marriage between the Lamb and his bride, his church, which is coming. So there's this wonderful, wonderful parallelism here of things that will be in the Tale of Two Cities happening in a good way with the New Jerusalem. They're not going to be happening in Rome anymore. So Rome seems like the bee's knees. Does anybody say that anymore? Anyway, the bee's knees. Rome is not. Rome may seem like she is in charge. Rome may seem like she is unassailable. Rome may seem like she will never fall, but it's going to be. She's going down. So hang in there, Christians, because all those things that are ascribed to Rome will be happening in the New Jerusalem in a much fuller and more wonderful way, and they will never happen in Rome again. Your thoughts or questions or comments here?
Well,
Go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
just on what you were just saying, I was trying to find, I thought somewhere in 21 and 22, it talks about like the nations of the earth bringing in their
Right, the king's bringing the yes.
their
Yes.
riches, basically.
Right,
But
right.
they kind of all, from what I remember, have their specific thing that their nation is like known for having, like Lebanon has cedars and all that. I'm misremembering.
I'm not sure if I remember they do bring it. I'm not sure if that laundry list is there in that
Yeah, that's
same
what I was
way.
looking for.
Yeah. But they certainly bring everything, and that comes, that's Isaiah, the kings of the earth will be drawn on this mountain, the Lord of hosts will establish a city, and everybody will be drawn to it. So
And I don't know, just the contrast between like Rome sort of taking it all from all the nations, all the finest things from the nations, and then and it's like them bringing their things to the Lord.
why are they bringing it to Rome? Well, there's a profit motive for them, but there's also the force of the Roman army, the Roman emperor, the Roman state, the Roman system, which is squeezing the Mediterranean so that most of the stuff they can get flows towards the benefit of Rome. And yet voluntarily the kings of the earth will come and bring their glory to God. So God, you don't want to force and squeeze anybody to worship God. Rome is using nasty tactics and force and coercion to get you to worship the emperor. God doesn't need that. God doesn't want that. They're going to naturally come and worship God. Good. Yeah, Gordon.
More of a historical question, than a biblical question. You've got courses and books written on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, but you say it fell from 1 million people to 25,000 people. What caused that?
Well, some of the some of the problems with Rome. I mean, there were manifold things. It got corrupt. It got lazy. It got decadent. Also, it split its power center. A lot of Rome's energy went to its second capital in what we call Istanbul, Constantinople. And so Rome, in some ways, the western part of the empire was kind of left high and dry and vulnerable to the barbarians when they started amassing. The Roman army kept the barbarians at bay. That kind of fell apart. And so the eastern half of the Roman Empire, we don't think of this because we're so Western centric. That didn't fall until the 1400s. The Ottoman Turks took out the eastern Byzantine Roman Empire. Yeah, Bob, you want to?
The folks, not the slave class, but then the folks in power, like quit having kids.
That's a good question. I'm not sure about how what birth rates were. That could be part of it. could be part of it. I think though that, empires rise, empires fall. I'm not trying to quote Hamilton's empires rise. But there's part of that cyclical thing too. But Rome really did get corrupt. Now the pagans in Rome said the reason Rome fell is because it became Christian. All this turn the other cheek stuff and love your enemy stuff. No, and one of the greatest Christian writers, the second greatest after St. Paul himself, St. Augustine of Hippo, had to write a whole book on that. That's not why Rome fell. This is Rome fell because this is a city of man. It's a human city. You're putting your trust in something human. The city of God is eternal. And so St. Augustine's great book, The City of God, is really a reflection on that. We didn't fall because Christianity has weakened the empire from within. It's because we were putting our trust in earthly human things instead of putting our trust in the living God. So certainly he would see the religious ramifications and motivations behind that. Does that help? Okay. Others? Yeah, I mean, when Rome started getting trampled over by barbarians, Constantinople became the place. It would be for well over 1,000 years. That was, they consider themselves the Roman Empire. We don't think of them that way. We think of them as the Byzantine Empire. We give them a separate name, but they certainly thought of themselves as Rome, carrying on. Heck, we even sent crusaders through there, and they attacked it as a pagan city, even though it was an Orthodox Christian city, sadly. That's another. They're still mad about that. Yeah, after what 900 years, they're still upset with the West doing that. Long memories in that part of the world. How dare they do that?
In verse 23, it's with the sorcerers and everything. They were seduced them with magic and drugs, and to get the nations to get on board.
And if you want to make some parallels to our modern world, what are we seducing our populaces with? What kind of sorcery and pharmacology and things does our population fall prey to? I don't know. And then, the Romans, the Romans had bread and circuses, bread and races and gladiatorial stuff to keep the thank goodness we don't have any kind of mass entertainment that keeps people occupied while things are falling apart around us. Okay, so certainly there are parallels that can always be drawn later on by us, no doubt. But I mean, nobody watched that. There was a little game last week, wasn't there? I don't think anybody in America watched it. So. Somebody said that's the only thing that draws red and blue people together anymore is NFL. There's a while when even the NFL got controversial. We've kind of gotten past that, and we're back to watching the Super Bowl together. One of the few things we did together. Yes. Yeah, that was poor. Alrighty, y'all. On that note, we'll pick up with a little more destruction next week and some rejoicing as well.
This is where we get into the future.
Well, I mean, we are in the future. I mean, Rome's destruction is being predicted here. But we're going to get really eschatologically. It's going to be end time stuff. Yeah, return more of that.
I've been waiting for.
Okay.
Because Hebrews are right to concern this because how the Hebrew Bible would have been. And the Greek is right. Whoa. Let's see, I was trying to look at the sorcery is broken magic.
Hey, Jimmy, if you books will do second cross.
Yeah, I mean, I can